In the last episode in our series on the history of Westeros, we talked about Robert's rebellion and how it managed to defeat the Targaryens, ending their centuries-long reign. But not everyone was happy to accept the reign of the new dynasty, the Baratheons. In this episode, we will talk about the history of the Iron Isles, why the Ironborn were so antagonistic with the mainlanders, and the Ironborn rebellion of Balon Greyjoy. The Iron Islanders, like everyone else, might have been worried about the coming apocalypse, the long night, and the armies of the dead. But life always finds a way, which is what happened on the world of Aurora, a tabletop fantasy RPG by Ghostfire Games, the sponsor of this video. Planet Aurora was split into 5 realms in the aftermath of a magical doomsday that ended an ancient war. However, now life is a battle for survival in a variety of hellscapes, where the old allies of mankind, the dragons, have become savage and hostile. This 5th edition D&D campaign gives you a gritty and extreme adventure, focused on survival, wilderness, and exploration. It's got a custom character creation system, where all players have unique ancestral abilities and can choose a variety of abilities based on their species. It also comes with an improved version of the 5th edition's advantage system, with more choices for players and game masters. This game is launching on Kickstarter, and if you pledge to support it there, you can get access to their special edition dragon dice and a gargantuan dragon model, Turishiva the Crimson Doom. With their all-in pledge, shipping and handling for all rewards is included, so there'll be no sneakily increasing shipping fees later, as many Kickstarters have been doing recently. Check it all out at aurorarpg.com, link in the description. Thousands of years before Robert's rebellion, the Iron Isles were settled by the first men. As the children of the forest didn't live here, they developed their own religion, focusing on the worship of the drowned god, with the priests of the Isles claiming they were not in fact first men, but rather had been created in the image of the drowned god. Even at this early stage, the Isles were disorganized and warlike, with a rock king ruling the land and a salt king commanding at sea, with these petty kings chosen by Kingsmoots in constant conflict. This changed when a priest of the drowned god, Galen Whitestaff, decreed that it was sinful for Ironborn to war with one another. Other priests preached this until each of the kings agreed to convene the first proper Kingsmoot on Old Wick in order to elect a High King. It was not to be a hereditary title, and the High Kings were to be known as Driftwood Kings. This unification allowed the Ironborn to begin conquering other lands, as opposed to the disorganized raids of the past. Under Corred the Cruel, they were able to conquer much of the western coast of Westeros, with Bear Island, the Arbor, and Old Town falling under their rule. His successors would, however, lose much of these lands, as the Lannisters, Hightowers, and Gardeners began to grow influential. While numerous houses would take on the role of High King, the Grey Irons began to become the preeminent rulers. High King Uragon IV's dying wish was that the kingship passed to his great-nephew, Euron, but the priests insisted that a Kingsmoot be called to decide this, and it was duly conducted on Old Wick. Here, Euron slaughtered all those who attended, among them 13 kings and 50 priests, establishing the hereditary rule of House Greyiron and abolishing the title of High King. The roles of Rock and Salt Kings were eliminated, with all other kings lowered to the rank of lords. The rule of the King of the Iron Islands now depended primarily upon the strength of each individual king. As a result, the Grey Irons faced half a dozen rebellions which nearly ended their rule. The mainland kings used this disunity, with Garth the Seventh Gardener driving the Ironborn from the Shield Islands and further fortifying the islands to prevent any raids. With the coming of the Andals, these mainland kings were also capable of building far stronger ships, which could now go toe-to-toe with the longships of the Ironborn. The wooden stockades of the First Men were replaced by stone castles, not only in the Reach, but also in the Riverlands and the Westerlands, with these more comprehensive defences counteracting the lightning raids of the Ironborn effectively. The Grey Irons lost much of their strength and were replaced by House Hoare after 1,000 years of hereditary rule. The whores had intermarried with the Andals when they arrived upon the Isles, and the priests of the drowned gods deemed them to be heretical and unworthy kings due to their tolerance of the faith of the Seven, and for encouraging trade in place of raiding. This contravention of the old ways eventually led to a rebellion by the priests, led by a priest known as Shrike, who overthrew King Harmond and mutilated his mother, Lelya Lannister, leading to a long war with the Lannisters, leaving the Iron Islands in an impoverished state and unable to effectively deal with what came to be known as the Famine Winter. It took many centuries for the Ironborns to fall, and they now traded freely with the coastal cities of Westeros and Free Cities, having lost all of their mainland holdings and lacking in the military might they once possessed. They were further forced to raid in far more distant areas, such as the Basilisk Isles, Stepstones, and disputed lands. Generations before the coming of the Targaryens and their conquest of the Seven Kingdoms, King Corwin the Cunning, who advocated peace above all else, built a large fleet in order to deter any attacks on his kingdom by the great houses of the mainland. His son, King Harwin Hardhand, was however a man of immense ambition, and used this fleet to conquer the Trident from the Storm King Arik Durrandon, with his grandson King Harren the Black beginning construction of Harrenhal, which was to be the largest castle in all of Westeros on the north shore of the God's Eye in central Westeros. The cost of its construction emptied the coffers of the Iron Islands. Their conquest and the fortifications were to prove inconsequential anyways. Aegon's arrival prompted Lord Edmund Tully and the rest of the River Lords to rebel. In spite of this, Harren refused to surrender to Aegon, believing his castle to be capable of weathering whatever would be thrown at him. In response to this refusal, Aegon mounted the dragon Balerion the Black Dread and flew above the fortifications, roasting Harren and his sons and reducing the once mighty castle to a ruin. The majority of Harren's supporters were killed on this day, with many more being slaughtered by the River Lords on their retreat to the Isles. In 2 AC, Aegon invaded the Iron Islands, defeating the pretenders to Harren's throne. He then allowed the defeated Ironborn to elect a new Lord of the Iron Islands, namely Lord Vicon Greyjoy, who now ruled as a vassal to the Targaryens. The subsequent Lords of the Iron Islands took a cautious approach in order to avoid provoking the wrath of the Dragon Lords. During the Dance of Dragons, however, the Lord Dalton Greyjoy began raiding again, even going so far as to capture some of the Westerlands. However, he was murdered in 133 AC by a concubine, and a struggle for power ensued due to his two sons being in their infancy. The angered Targaryens, under Lady Johanna Lannister, allied with Sir Leo Costane in 134 AC in order to invade the islands to claim some form of retribution for this assault, although she ultimately failed to place her son, Lord Lorien Lannister, upon the Seastone chair. During Aerys I's reign, Lord Dagon Greyjoy, who came to be known as the Last Reaver, led the Ironborn once more to the western coast of the mainland and mercilessly raided the region. The Iron Islands would, however, support the Iron Throne during the War of the Nine Penny Kings, with Lord Quellon Greyjoy himself personally leading 100 longships to fight in the Stepstones. Quellon would outlaw thraldom in the Isles and wished to further integrate the Iron Islands into the broader realm, but he maintained a cautious nature during Robert's rebellion, initially pursuing neutrality. However, as we covered in the last video, he initially sided with Robert before being killed at the battle at the Mander. Quellon was succeeded by his eldest son, Balon, who rejected the approach taken by his father and wished to return to the old ways of paying the iron price and re-establishing an independent Iron Islands for the Ironborn. This would not be feasible in the immediate aftermath of Quellon's death, as Robert maintained much in the way of support and strength following the end of the Targaryens. Robert's brother Stannis was tasked with building a new royal fleet and storming the last Targaryen redoubt of Dragonstone, where Queen Rhaela Targaryen yet remained. The assault on the island took place 9 months after the Battle of the Trident in 284 AC. Rhaela had died giving birth to Daenerys Targaryen, and a vicious storm battered the castle that same night, destroying the Targaryen fleet which lay at anchor. Stannis received news that the castle's garrison was ready to sell out Targaryen heirs, Viserys and Daenerys. However, right before Stannis approached Dragonstone, Sir Willem Darry and 4 other Targaryen loyalists saved the children by crossing the Narrow Sea and making it to Essos. Dragonstone was gifted to Stannis, as Robert, furious with his brother for failing to capture the Targaryen children, gave the Baratheon seat of Storm's End to his younger brother Renly. The support for Robert was not universal, with many referring to him as the usurper, among them Prince Oberyn of Dorne, who planned a rebellion to install Viserys as king in retribution for the deaths of Elia Martell and her children. However, he was dissuaded by Jon Arryn, who travelled to Dorne personally. Robert also maintained no wish to marry following on from the death of Lyanna, and as such was less than enthusiastic about marrying Cersei Lannister in 284 AC. However, he also recognised the need for Lannister support. The marriage was successful to a certain extent, stabilising the realm further, and providing 3 remarkably blonde children, Joffrey, Myrcella and Tommen. Still, Balon presumed that Robert's rule was a weak one, and that he lacked support amongst the nobility of his kingdom. So over the next 5 years, the Lord of the Iron Islands constructed the Iron Fleet, consisting of 100 war galleys. He presumed that Robert would not be able to muster a sufficient counterattack to defeat the Ironborn in case they attacked the mainland. In 289 AC, some 6 years into the reign of Robert Baratheon, Balon proclaimed himself King of the Iron Islands and was crowned under Naga's ribs on Old Wick. Believing control of the Sunset Sea would be vital in the conflict to come, and the eventual success or failure of his fledgling kingdom, Balon placed great stock in a plan devised by his brother Euron. The Iron Fleet, commanded by another brother, Victarion, made its way to Lannisport in the Westerlands. Here, Victarion threw the first torch upon the flagship of the Warden of the West Tywin Lannister's fleet, and the remaining 30 ships were likewise destroyed in the burning. Balon, hearing the news, responded in a characteristically overconfident manner, declaring, "The sea shall be my moat, and woe to any man who dares to cross it." This victory allowed King Balon to send a contingent of longships and reavers to storm the seat of House Mallister Seaguard under his eldest son Roderick. The battle which took place beneath the walls was fierce, with no love lost between the mainlanders and the marauding Ironborn. This represented the only time in 300 years that the bronze bell, housed within the booming tower of Seaguard, was rang in order to call the townsfolk to safety within the castle when longships were sighted. The battle was to be a crushing defeat for the islanders, as Lord Jason Mallister killed Roderick Greyjoy in single combat, crushing the morale of the raiders, before driving them back into the Sunset Sea. This not only cost Balon his heir, but also prevented the Ironborn from taking any of the wealthy regions of the Riverlands. The early momentum lost, the Greyjoys now braced for the inevitable counterattack by the forces of the Crown. Unfortunately, they faced one of the greatest tacticians of their age in Stannis Baratheon, Lord of Dragonstone and Master of Ships. Stannis merged the royal fleet with that of the Redwyne fleet from the Arbor, and also a number of ships coming from Old Town and the Reach. The battle which was to decide the war took place in the Straits of Fair Isle. Victarion's Iron Fleet was in position within the straits, with the island of Fair Isle to their west and the Westerlands to their east. Stannis had calculated their position, however, and split his navy in two, trapping the Iron Fleet from both the north and south, effectively surrounding the Ironborn. The youngest Greyjoy brother, Aeron's ship, Golden Storm, was destroyed by Stannis' flagship. He was washed ashore, where he was captured and brought to Casterly Rock in chains. Likewise, the 2 sons of Roderick Harlaw were killed in the battle. The Ironborn navy was effectively destroyed, and this ended the threat posed by the Ironborn, allowing for an invasion of the Isles proper. Stannis subdued the island of Great Wick in Robert's name, while Sir Barristan Selmy, Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, and widely regarded as the most effective warrior in the Seven Kingdoms, successfully smashed all resistance upon Old Wick. Likewise, Harlaw and Orkmont were quickly pacified. the final battle of the war took place upon the island of Pike, and the Crown's forces were commanded by King Robert Baratheon I and his Warden of the North, Eddard Stark. The force amassed by the Crown was immense, with thousands of battle-hardened warriors from Robert's rebellion landing upon the island which housed the seat of the Greyjoys. Taking stock of the situation, the decision was taken to raze Botley Castle and the town of Lordsport prior to commencing the main attack on the Castle of Pike. Siege engines were assembled and a bombardment of the southern wall ensued. Before long, the main watchtower was brought down, which destroyed much of the surrounding wall. Maharramli Greyjoy, who was the second of King Balon's 3 sons, was killed in this bombardment, leaving only his youngest son Theon in the male line. The destruction of the watchtower opened up a sizable breach in the wall. The forces of the king rushed forward, first among them a Red Priest of R'hllor from the free city of Myr named Thoros, who had been sent to the Seven Kingdoms initially in order to convert a fire-obsessed King Aerys II before later joining Robert's court. The image of this Red Priest hefting a blade coated in wildfire, rushing ahead of the rest of the force, and being first through the breach, was one all who took part in the battle that day would never forget. Not far behind the priest many considered to be a lunatic was Jorah Mormont of Bear Island, who went on to earn a knighthood in recognition of his bravery that day, making his mark in taking the castle in spite of the fierce fighting, with Sir Jacelyn Bywater likewise earning his knighthood that day for similar feats. With the castle taken, Balon Greyjoy was utterly defeated and forced to bend the knee to King Robert, swearing his fealty once more to the Iron Throne. In order to add insult to injury, his only remaining son Theon, who was 9 years of age at the time, was given to Lord Eddard Stark as a hostage in order to ensure the loyalty of the Ironborn. The king then celebrated this great victory with a tourney at Lannisport, the same place where a year prior the entire insurrection had commenced. The winner of the joust that day was Lord Jorah Mormont, who was awarded the victory after breaking 9 lances against Sir Jaime Lannister. He would go on to name Lynesse Hightower as his Queen of Love and Beauty, before successfully requesting her hand in marriage that same night from her father, Lord Leighton Hightower. While the realm returned to peace and Robert basked in the adulation of the people following on from his great victory, the rebellion proved that Robert could not command the same respect from his vassals that the previous Targaryen kings had. Discontent remained in Dorne, and more importantly in his bedchamber, as his wife Cersei Lannister hated him. This brings us to the events detailed within A Game of Thrones, and in this next episode we will talk about the end of Robert's reign and the beginning of the War of the Five Kings. We're planning to cover the battles of many other fantasy, sci-fi and space opera universes, so make sure you have subscribed and pressed the bell button. Please consider liking and sharing as it helps immensely, and don't forget to comment. We'll try to read and respond to every comment as we want to know what you think about this video and which videos you hope to see in the future. This is the Wizards and Warriors channel, and we'll catch you on the next one.